Hi, this video is going to help you to answer those tricky estimating questions. They tend to crop up on GCSE exam papers. And the whole idea behind estimating is that you are going to get a rough answer, something that you can do in your head, some sort of calculation that's going to give you an answer which is close enough, a feel for how big the answer should be if you were to type those numbers in on a calculator. So here's our first example, 36 times 9.8, all divided by 4.86. And the first thing that you should do when you're asked to estimate is you should try to round each of those numbers to one significant figure. If you haven't already watched the video on rounding to one significant figure, I'd encourage you to do so, because otherwise some of the rounding conventions we use might be a little bit confusing to you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this number 36, I'm going to round it to one significant figure, and that is going to be to the nearest 10, so 40 to the nearest 10. Okay, the next number I need to round is this 9.8. The first significant figure is in the units column, so I round it to the nearest unit, which is 10. And then on the bottom here, I've got a 4.86. My first significant figure is in the units column, so I round to the nearest unit, which is 5. And now you can see that what we've done is we have made what looks like a complicated sum to do quite easy. And that's the point of estimating. You've got to be able to do it really in your head. So this number here is going to be 40 times 10, 400, divided by 5. Well, I know that 40 divided by 5 is going to be 8, so I think that's going to be 80. Okay. One thing to note, although I said you need this sort of skill is learnt so that you can do things in your head, you will always need to write down this stage here where you're actually doing the rounding. The examiner needs to see that you have rounded to one significant figure. Okay, let's have a look at a second example now. This one is a bit more tricky for a reason that you will see in a second. Okay, but let's go ahead and apply the rule. We've got to use approximations to estimate the answer. That just means estimate. Use one significant figure. So we look at this number, 165. The first digit is in the hundreds column, so I'm going to round that to the nearest 100 and write it down. The next number is in the tens column, so I'm going to round that to the nearest 10, which is 30, and write it down. And then I've got this last number to round, which is 0.52. Now, the first non-zero digit, remember when you're rounding to one significant figure, it must be the first non-zero digit, is the 5. Therefore, I'm rounding to one decimal place, and it should be 0.5 when I round like that. So if I try and work this out, look, the top here becomes 230, the bottom is 0.5. When you've got a denominator of 0.5 and you're asked to simplify it, that can be quite tricky because people are tempted to half the number. 230, half of that is 115. That's incorrect though, because halving is dividing by 2. Here we're asked to divide by 0.5. And there's two ways that you can think about this. Some people like to think that you're asking how many 0.5s go into 230. Well, if you start counting up 0.5s, you need 2 of them for every unit. So there are 230 units here. We need 2 0.5s for each one of those, so the answer would be 460. That's not my favourite way of doing it though. My favourite way of doing it is to simply treat this like a fraction, to double the numbers, and then to say to myself, right, well now I've got something I can do. What's 460 divided by 1? It's just 460. So I have now estimated the answer, 460. Okay, just one more example, just to really show how that fraction bit at the end works. Okay, this time we've got 0.352, so when I round that I'm going to make 0.4. This one here, 143, nearest hundred, it's 100. And on the bottom of this fraction, I've got 0.19. If I round to the nearest tenth, that is 0.2. So there's a couple of ways that you can deal with this now. You could go ahead and do, let's put one way over here. You could go ahead and do 0.4 times 100, like that. Or you could do something a bit cleverer. You could take this 0.4 divided by 0.2. Do that division first. 0.4. How many 0.2s go into 0.4? It's 2. Okay. Either way, we're going to get the same answer. Let's just see. If you manage to follow this way, it's going to end up being a lot quicker. There's the 200. But what about if you weren't so confident? What about if you did 40 over 0.2? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to times these numbers by 5. 5 lots of that will make my 1. 5 lots of that will make 200. And suddenly, you can see I've got the same answer either way. So there's two possible ways that you can deal with that fraction. Okay, and I suspect that this way is sort of a bit more of a rote learning kind of way, whereas this way it does require a little bit of knowledge and understanding of how multiplying and dividing work together. Anyway, I hope that's helped, and good luck with your estimating.